Here come the color men, they're trying to fool me again. Show me their video and ask me to pretend it's better than the real thing. I watch the screen explode to artificial spring. They laugh with confidence, you don't suspect a thing till the thing comes. Yeah, yeah. Flamingos falling from the sky. Flamingos, Mother Nature cries for you. Mother Nature cries for you. Mother Nature cries for you.
Well, I'd also like to thank you for allowing me into your homes for this 14th episode of Esoteric Science Roundtable. And I do want to begin by making a couple of announcements. First being to remind folks about the metaphysical and philosophical meetings that we here at Esoteric Science Roundtable and the fine folks at Therefore I Am Jeff Contreras and crew co-host each and every third Wednesday of the month. And so for the month of February, it's going to be falling on the 16th. We encourage anyone that's interested in the subjects that we talk about on our respective shows, or if they have something that they would care to bring to our attention, or if they just care to come and hang out and just be in the same room, whatever the case may be. Everyone is more than welcome to come and hang out. Again, it starts 8 p.m. We stay till whenever people decide they're ready to leave. Upstairs, we always meet upstairs at Opal's. Again, this third Wednesday is going to fall on the 16th, so we do encourage anyone that's interested to please come down and join with our discussion group. Okay, I would like to also start by mentioning something that, an incident that took place recently that I'm somewhat amused by, maybe I shouldn't be, which is the bribery attempt that was made by one of Mayor Will Wynn's aides, one of his, I guess, main aides, that he in a public place offered a bribe of $200 to a particular individual. Now, I do have the benefit of knowing this individual, Jimmy Gardner, who allegedly was bribed, and I've known him for several years, and without any question, this is a definite person of integrity. And so, obviously, you know, the mayor and his staff, I guess they're perhaps as ignorant as they are arrogant in this case. I'm not really sure. I don't know what to chalk this up to, for them to be so bold and so blatant as to try to offer a bribe to someone in a very public place with a lot of media people around and what have you. So, again, I'm not really too sure why they would try to pull that off, but I have absolutely no question whatsoever as to the fact that this did take place, because as I said, I have known Jimmy Gardner for at least 3 years, and I know without question that this is a person of integrity. So, you know, I guess the aide to the mayor, he didn't have his integrity meter handy for him to be able to tell, hey, this guy's got he's going off the scale on the high integrity, this guy. But they did make that mistake nonetheless, and they even, Jimmy did even refrain from bringing it up for a while, and offering the Austin Statesman the opportunity to break the story as they said they would. And when they decided they were going to roll it over into a Saturday story and incorporate it into some other stuff, the call or the decision was made to go ahead and call a press conference and to get that information out. And so again, this just goes to show the level that some of these elected officials will stoop to in order to save their skins, I guess, or if they feel some kind of perceived threat towards their gravy train. So again, without any question, anyone that knows Jimmy Gardner knows without any question that, again, he's a person of high integrity, and they just picked the wrong person to try to offer a bribe to. It's just, it's kind of amusing to me. So again, I just wanted to bring that up as that's been a recent occurrence, and it's something that I felt I should add my 2 cents worth towards, being that I know Jimmy, and I, again, feel that he's has a lot of integrity and is not making this up. So that's all I want to add on that. Today's topic is tinkering, and I chose the word tinkering to relay the idea of somebody meddling with something or fooling with something. And in this particular instance, I want to go into, again, discussing some aspects that have been taking place within the scientific community as of late. And these different aspects or experiments have been going on for some time. But just more recently, we've gotten a lot of mainstream information or mainstream press on the concept of cloning and a lot of what's taking place with manipulating our humanity, manipulating the human genome, and either incorporating animal genes or trying to meld species and trying to really do some things that I feel are quite dangerous and really unnecessary. I mean, certainly science has an obligation to explore, and that is the nature of science, is to explore and to delve into matter and to try to understand the nature of matter. But certainly when we think of living things, there is the matter, the material aspect, but there is also a spiritual component or a soul component that ties in as well. And so that, I think, is too often neglected when it comes to mainstream science in some of this experimentation that's taking place. And so, again, the scientist is essentially the true occultist, because they do delve into the hidden aspects of matter, and they're trying to understand and extract information by these means. And so it's right and proper, again, that they should attempt to delve in and try to unravel some of these mysteries of creation and seek to give us some understanding of how, as humanity, we are able to co-create at some levels. But this manipulation that's more commonplace in this day and age, just to see what can be done, I think in some cases, I feel is very regrettable, because this is leading towards a wide license with people of science to try a lot of things, in a back alley kind of manner, where it's not really so well publicized or considered, that a lot of these experiments are either allowed to go on, or they do go on, again, under with little or no scrutiny. And so this can, I think there are good examples of little scrutiny with people experimenting, but when it comes to, again, tinkering around or fooling around with the human genome, I feel there needs to be some restraint and some consideration given before we just jump in with both feet and try to start experimenting, manipulating, rearranging, whatever term you want to consider, with our humanity. I certainly do believe that we, as humans, have a soul, an individual soul, and certainly animals have a soul as well, although within the animal kingdom, you have what's known more as a group soul. So you have the dog soul, cat soul, lion soul, elephant soul, that it would be more of a collective that they would all be a part of, and they don't have an individualized soul as of yet, as do humanity. And certain animals are able to evolve and to start to have some, like a precursory kind of individuality, especially with the domesticated animals and the pets that we bring into our homes. They do tend to, they are allowed by virtue of those circumstances to get a leg up, if you will, on the evolutionary process, and to work towards some sort of individualization. As esoteric science teaches, that all life passes through various kingdoms of nature before ultimately becoming human, and the human condition being the culmination of a long, long process where the life force makes its way through mineral, plant, animal, and then ultimately to becoming human. There are a lot of ideas about the idea of the human soul, and one in particular is related to reincarnation, that the soul does come back time after time to find the right and proper circumstances to allow it to carry on its life expression and to learn and to grow and to share and exchange. And so the soul nature continues to recur throughout time within humanity. And so many people feel that there's a term metempsychosis, which means transmigration of souls. And that oftentimes is interpreted as the soul can migrate anywhere. It can migrate into, a rock or a plant or an animal, something of that nature. But there's sort of a stop in the sense that once one becomes human, they're not able to regress, if you will, or go back and retrace their steps into the animal kingdom. Once you've become individualized and become human, you will proceed from that condition forward. So the idea of metempsychosis as being a condition where we will just freely or frequently go back and forth between a human condition and an animal condition is not accurate. And so when people consider reincarnation, or they choose to dismiss reincarnation, this is oftentimes one of the excuses or the examples that is given is that, well, I don't want to believe that I'm going to go back into an animal, and this, if I've been a bad person or whatever the case may be. And so that's a real stumbling block in many instances, that it would be helpful at least to consider, because certainly considering reincarnation is going to be different from person to person. But if we do accept, even as a hypothesis, that reincarnation can take place and the soul goes from life to life, it would be helpful in this analogy or this consideration to consider the soul as once human, and not, again, just jumping back and forth between the various kingdoms. And so that's something to consider. The real, I guess, main concern, if someone is willing to consider, even hypothetically, that there is a soul attached to each individual human, that the concept of when does the soul actually meet and merge with the upcoming individual, the new life forming. So considering that the soul is in the proximity of any new life as it's, well, first of all, the souls are going to be cognizant of situations that are going to allow it to progress. And so as it sees potential prospective parents that might allow for the opportunity for its advancement and its further experimentation and growth overall, that the soul will be in a position to consider where it will go, which parents it will choose. And oftentimes this is dictated by a group situation, a group scenario in which we find ourselves reincarnating with a group of people over and over again, and we exchange roles with this group over time. But nonetheless, that the soul does, once conception has started, move ever closer and finally integrate itself in a more fixed position with the growing life. And so, esoterically, the point when the soul does attach itself to the new life, it doesn't really affix itself permanently until a couple of years in to the life of a new child. And so the idea that, well, there are certain ideas as to when a child dies and, what is the karmic lesson? Is the young child learning the lesson? Is this a lesson for the benefit of the parents that have to lose the child? These also are questions that might be considered in this connection that are going to color the argument one way or another. But nonetheless, there is going to be a point when begin its growth through that process. And so, again, that there's no real exact certainty as to when that takes place, either through esoteric science or through contemporary science, certainly. But again, it's a definite point of consideration for us to expand on these ideas. And I remember when I was younger, when the first test tube baby was announced and made public, and I was considering at that time, how does the soul work in relation to this situation? How does the soul, find its way ultimately to this life, to attach itself to this life when it's not born or created in the traditional manner through the woman's womb and all that. Well, anyway, the alteration that takes place and the way the merging takes place, that it's not the usual physical method. And so I remember when that news broke, and I was struggling with that idea and wondering, how does that factor in? And then if we consider how that's cropped out from that point to cloning, and certainly we can consider what we have available in the mainstream, which is like Dolly the sheep, for instance, and a handful of other animals that have been cloned. I know a woman had her pet cat clone that she was quite partial to. And so we can see that there has been, quite a bit, I don't know if that's not the right term, but increasingly more and more we're hearing about cloning in relation to animals and how that science is progressing in that respect. The one thing, though, that is, I feel, worthy of consideration is the defects, the physical defects that, like Dolly the sheep died prematurely, and I think that's going to still be, I guess, has to be worked out, or whatever term you want to use, in order for the cloning process to be more perfected. Because it's going to continue. There's really, the genie has been let out of the proverbial bottle. So I think there would be really no going back in this instance to prevent further cloning. But again, considering that there should be some caution in these exercises, especially when we are aware of the fact that these animals do have these inherent defects by virtue of the imperfect cloning process. We are trying to tinker with Mother Nature, to co-create, but these, I feel, are premature attempts at co-creation in some respect, but also they're a bit negligent by just going in and trying to see what's possible, see what we can do, and especially, or maybe not especially, but also the idea of the woman that cloned her pet cat just for her own, selfish reasons. I can't imagine any other reason why that would have been done. Certainly to see if it can be done, I guess, on the one hand from the scientific perspective, but from the woman's perspective, that, people have a hard time with the idea of death, and they want to cling to the form. They want to hold on to what's tangible and what they are readily recognizing, without looking a bit further into it, considering things from a more spiritual perspective or from the soul angle, and that the soul continues onward and onward and onward, and that is the real kernel of our being. That is the real essence of us, is the soul nature, and that is, in my estimation, where the emphasis should lie with memorializing anyone or considering, again, the life and death of any particular individual, whether that be human or otherwise. That, again, the soul is the real portion of any person, and the dense physical vessel, the dense physical vehicle, is an after effect of a spiritual cause. The physical body is much like a caboose at the end of the train that doesn't have its own volition, it doesn't have its own will, it doesn't have its own motives. It's just being pulled along, without any real say in the matter. And so it is part of the train, no doubt, but it is the least part. It's the less active, I guess, part of that situation. And so we're hearing more and more about attempts to clone humans, and more license that is given, more flexibility and a more free reign for scientists to delve into these areas and to tinker with, again, the human genome and our humanity at various levels. And so more information, as I said earlier, has been coming out mainstream, and China is one place that's giving, I suppose, in a mainstream fashion at any rate, giving the most flexibility to their scientists to attempt to experiment along these lines. To me, that's very confounding, considering that China still has policies where if you have too many children, they'll kill your firstborn daughter right in front of you, you know, because they want to have more men than they do women. And so their concepts of euthanasia and their ideas of dispatching certain newborn babies kind of flies in the face of wanting to clone. But again, considering the challenge to perfect this process and just the, I guess, the zeal for experimentation that drives and spurs on these scientists does factor in, certainly. But as far as, again, with China, they've got enough of their own population that's brought about through the normal procreation process without having to consider cloning extra folks to bring onto the continent. So that's just another consideration as well. So ideas of cloning have been making the mainstream more so as of late. But anyone that's delved into more alternative news and considered maybe some of the UFO phenomena and things of that nature, and considered what are termed black budgets, the budgets that our military-industrial complex and the like operate on, there's really no accounting. There's no accountability for this money and what it's being used on. And so the idea that our government has been cloning is pretty popular among a lot of more alternative-minded individuals. And I certainly feel that again, I don't have any hard, fast proof, I don't have any documentation, but just intuitively, I'm sure we've been cloning individuals reasonably successfully since at least the 70s, perhaps longer. But I'm quite confident that for at least a good 30-some-odd years that we've been cloning individuals, cloning humans, and that there are likely clones walking around, you know, in the major cities or what have you, that we wouldn't really readily recognize as being a clone unless we were to know that they were a clone and have some proof of that fact. But nonetheless, just from a speculation perspective, I feel it's almost impossible that we haven't cloned a human by now, considering what we do know. And any time, you know, just like with so many other things, what makes the news, what does make its way to the surface, usually is like an iceberg. We get the small tip of the iceberg that makes itself apparent and is known to us and is obvious, but there's, in almost every case, invariably, there's going to be a huge mass under the surface that we're unaware of. And so, again, considering that analogy with the cloning, I would say there's a very good chance that we've been cloning for some time, and that the process is a bit more along than we might have previously considered. And so getting to this point, if we are cloning humans, which I'm quite confident that we are, the idea of the defects would have to be considered again, that if we're still in the process of experimenting with this, with cloning, that if we haven't gotten it right, so to speak, that there would likely be defects that would evidence themselves in the lives of the clones before too terribly long. And I think this is something that is probably valid to consider as well, and it probably is an aspect of this, of the clonings of humans, that they are being cloned and they likely do have these physical defects that, again, our inability to create as perfectly as the divine would demonstrate itself. I think that we do, without question, have an obligation and an opportunity to co-create with the divine. It's just a question of how that will pan itself out. Will it pan itself out through these scientific means, or will there be a more organic process involved that will allow for this to make itself manifest? And what we see taking place is what I would refer to as a recurring cyclic trend that we've seen far, far back into antiquity, excuse me, but what we would consider returning or repeating itself on a higher turn of the spiral. And I spoke about that a week or so ago on the show as a show topic, that when we from one point we can look at what's gone before and what's yet to come, and we can see how the same point will find itself into manifestation again, or the same energy will find itself in manifestation, and these processes repeat themselves. And so the idea that far, far back into antiquity, in the so-called Atlantean days on the continent of Atlantis, that one of the main things that led to the demise was the prostituting of the creation process and the prostituting of our ability to co-create with the divine to materialistic and selfish ends. Another thing that is a part of that ancient time, which again I don't really have any documentation, so this is just for the most part has to be considered hypothetically or just theoretically, but that we were able to somehow crossbreed with humans and animals. And so we get ideas of like the centaur or the satyr, things like that. They're half horse, half man, half goat, half man, like a Pan, for instance, half goat, half man, or a man or a human that would have some sort of a tail, some sort of appendage attached to them that was, part of this animal mixture that did take place, again, far back into antiquity, and that this breaking of the law led to, ultimately, was a part and parcel of the demise of Atlantis, but it did carry itself over, and some of the humans that did have these animal characteristics, according to one individual anyway, and again, this is even further speculative, but I'll throw it out there anyway. The sleeping prophet Edgar Cayce spoke of when he would do what was called life readings for people. He would go into a sleep state or trance state, and he would do life readings for individuals, and he would recount in some cases their previous lives in Atlantis. And so in some of his life readings, he would speak about after the Egyptian society sprang up after the flood. It was one of the great cultures that sprang up after the flood, that some of the priest class would work to get rid of the appendages, get rid of the animal aspects that were part of our early humanity, a certain group at any rate. And so they worked to try to remedy what was done as far as these transgressions that were enacted upon our fellow humans, and that these half men, half animals were relegated to basically like a slave class, and so they were subjugated and looked at as less than or lower than. And so these ideas could easily revisit themselves with these new ideas and concepts of cloning, in that, not only, should we consider, or we might consider the soul in relation to a clone. Does it have a soul? When does the soul affix itself to a clone? How does that process work? My intuitive feeling would be that yes, a clone would have a soul, and there would be a soul that would affix itself to the clone and work its way through the evolutionary process in that manner. So that's something to consider as well, with in the respect of clones. Now, also, there's been some mainstream information as of late on more delvings in or more tinkerings with human-animal mutations, kind of like an Island of Dr. Moreau kind of scenario as well, that we can consider, in that this is actually taking place. And we are getting reports that humans are being melded with animals. And so another term would be chimera, that would be that we could consider that would describe this situation. And this, again, to me is quite troubling. There was a woman in the late 1800s named Helena Blavatsky who started an organization called the Theosophical Society, and she wrote in several places about these ideas of merging and manipulating, especially with animal and man, and that this was really the vilest black magic. And I feel that this is indeed the case, that we're seeing a recurrence of this black or evil influence, this dark influence that's overshadowing some of these scientists, that is, it's rearing its ugly head again, if you will. And so we're seeing this process repeat itself. Again, how, if indeed we do end up with part animal, part human hybrids, how will they be treated? Will they be relegated to, less than human status? I think that would probably be most persons' perspective on it, or perception would be that, well, they're not fully human, so they don't have the full rights that you would offer to a human being, and so that's going to offer its own challenges, I think, in the future if these hybrids become more commonplace in society. So this is going to remain to be seen as to how this pans out. There's also a couple of other things along those lines. One thing, supposedly the Emperor Constantine had a pickled satyr, that, again, the half goat, half man, that he had access to, and that he had in his collection, if you will. And so that's another point of consideration. That really was not all that long ago that that allegedly, happened. So that's, again, probably open to some speculation, but it's interesting for consideration nonetheless. Also, some may be familiar with the scientist Paracelsus. That he did much experimentation, and one of the things that he allegedly created was a small person, if you will, a small entity that he called a homunculus. The homunculus was, again, a small little entity that he created that was human-like, humanoid, but that he felt that it had no soul, and so he ultimately destroyed it by virtue of that very reason, that it had no soul, so he would destroy it. And so, again, open to speculation. Another concept kind of along those lines is the idea of the golem, and that something would be, some inanimate material would be given life, that would be animated at some level. And this could be, it would be kind of like a zombie situation, that the golem could do one's bidding and could be employed to carry out certain tasks. And so this is, again, another quite speculative concept, but nonetheless ties into the idea of manipulating or tinkering with matter and tinkering with life, tinkering with the life essence that flows through all living things, and manipulating it for some selfish ends, which, again, I would classify as some of the vilest black magic and some of the things that are just not, that are best not penetrated into, that are we should not really be treading in these areas. And there's not a real good reason to, in my estimation. If we even flash forward to the World War II era, Joseph Mengele was pretty famous for having done experimentation trying to breed women with dogs, for instance, and that various other aspects of trying to, again, create hybrids or do cross-species breeding. And so that apparently didn't work itself out so well, and that we didn't have any luck with merging the dog with the human. But there has been some information available that a jackal would actually be compatible enough with the human that we could merge jackal and human. And considering the Bible references to the jackal, or being the son of a jackal, that's further fuel for consideration as well, that that would tie in. And so the experimentation from Mengele is pretty well known. It's pretty well, I guess, documented, if you will. Also, another aspect of that, a lot of the Nazi scientists were brought over to the States and taken over to Russia and other, the victors of the of World War II. These, we inherited some of these thinkers of that time. And so the idea that these individuals like Mengele or someone of his ilk would have made his way over to the States to continue again with these, under the black ops kind of scenario, that they would continue to be able to carry out experimentation with little or no scrutiny, and that their findings could be used to to control humanity in some respect, or to manipulate humanity in some respects. And so it's, again, just a further consideration along those lines from a more historical perspective that is pretty well documented and considered. And so we're trying to link man to so many different things in this day and age that I feel a lot of these things are not in our best interest, especially, well, not especially, but also in addition to the potential cloning and merging of animal and man. Ideas of trying to merge man and machine and trying to do some kind of computer interface or make some kind of a cyborg person to allow us to interface with other humanity, or that we would have some sort of a chip in us that would allow not only tracking and tracing, but again, allow us to interface with some electronic devices or things of that nature. To me, I also feel that these are negative applications of these sciences, and that these will only lead to further control of humanity and further manipulation of humanity. We are, I certainly feel, are divine in essence, and so as we are divine, we can express our divinity through various means, and I feel that we can do this in a much more organic fashion, and that we will be able to communicate with each other and work and cooperate with one another with just what we have. We are electromagnetic in our very essence and our nature, and so by virtue of that, we have an electromagnetic connection with other individuals. And certainly some are familiar with ideas of telepathy and mental projection and things of that nature. And I think these are all components of that tie in, and that as we evolve through this human form, through this condition, that these qualities of mind and these electromagnetic capacities that we have inherent within us can be exploited and, but in a proper fashion, and accentuated. Our electromagnetic nature can be accentuated to allow for an organic exchange to take place between human to human, group to group, and that, again, telepathy and things like this will be more considered in the future. And I think that as the establishment continues to press these ideas of cloning and merging man and machine, or man and other animals, enough of the populace, rightly informed, will be outraged and appalled enough to where these natural affinities and these organic processes will be much more quickly manifest, because this will be a knee-jerk reaction in a sense, or a definite reaction to a lot of the manipulation that's going on, again, by science and otherwise. And so that's definitely a point of consideration. This is all, to me, it's also part of a recurrence of black magic versus white magic. This was a key component of what ultimately led to the demise of Atlantis from a spiritual perspective, that the material tendencies of those peoples became so overbearing that it reflected itself in a war, if you will, between the most spiritual components and the most material components of that time, and led to the subsiding of an entire continent. But I see this revisiting itself, again, on a higher turn of the spiral for our day and age, in the way that, again, a lot of this manipulation is taking place. And I want to throw in one other thing as well. all of the mass drugging that is being encouraged is, I think, another component of this as well, that when you have companies like Eli Lilly that are hoping to get upwards to 50% of the children on some kind of a psychotropic or psychoactive, like a Ritalin-based kind of medication, that this is a definite effort to, again, squelch or stifle or subjugate our human natural co-creative expressive abilities, and that so many children are being born at this day and age with a set of tools at their disposal to do great work and to change things and to work in a cooperative fashion, that the numbers of these children coming into our incarnation right now is so great, and that those Black Lodge or those very materialistic forces are quite aware of, are trying to kind of head this off in a sense. And I think this is an outcropping of that, that if they can force enough of our youth to be minds, then a spiritual revolution that is right and proper, that we're right on the brink of, that ties into the so-called Aquarian Age and all that fun stuff, is being held in abeyance, is being held back by, again, these druggings and psychological evaluations of our youth, or anyone for that matter, that tends to think outside of the box. And certainly I have to put myself in that category in my efforts to keep Austin weird and to explore things that are a little bit out of the norm, but I think have quite a bit of relevance, because things that are unseen are just as real and valid as things that are tangible and are observable and apparent to everyone. They're even more real in my estimation, because these are the causative things. These are at the level of the cause, at the level of spirit, where these thoughts or these ideas or these impulses originate, and then they move themselves down into the physical and they manifest at some physical level and become readily apparent to everyone. And so the causal portion is the real deal, where we can really see, again, the origin, the intent, and follow through to manifestation. And we can have a better understanding by understanding the real essence of creation, the real essence of a human, an animal, what have you, that the inner nature, once it's appropriated, understood, and ascertained, can give us some real insights into not only ourselves and our own human nature, but how in the future humans can collectively create and cooperate in conjunction with divine law. This is our birthright. This is something that we can reclaim, if we so choose, in a collective fashion. It's really up to us as to how we want to proceed. And so cautiously, in this regard, is how I would ask that we consider these things, because, again, I feel that we are tinkering into some areas that lend themselves to, again, what's termed black magic, or are very materialistic, selfish thinking. And so the motives behind these things are probably not always the best. And so that's certainly a consideration as well. Not to mention the frankenfood that is a result of, like, Archer Daniels Midland, Monsanto, these huge agribusiness entities that take seed and manipulate it so that it won't grow again naturally. So you have to keep buying the seed stock over and over again of this altered seed stock, and it's is oftentimes devoid of real nutrition, and is oftentimes, again, merged, that these seed stock spliced or merged with, let's say, grasshopper genes or roach genes in order to give it let's say a tomato, for instance, give it a brighter, redder color, give it a longer shelf life, give it a different texture, a different taste. And this is being done, left and right, I think, in a very hazardous fashion, without a lot of consideration for the full ramifications that are yet to take place. With us playing God in this respect, especially with our human condition, I think we're setting ourselves up for a definite fall along many lines. And so to consider these things in an intelligent manner, and to consider these things from the relation of the soul, I think will help us to proceed, and again, use caution, and to work where if we do indeed at some point have some sort of hybrid that they're given, I guess, the fairest treatment possible, I don't know. I mean, these are things that are yet to really manifest themselves. We don't have the island of Dr. Moreau, situation that that's really evident at this point in time. But with the mainstream articles that are starting to come out, it's really lending itself to take place. So again, proceeding with caution and just being informed about these ideas is certainly something that's I feel is worthy of consideration. So that's the reason for this topic this evening. Let me go ahead and grab some. I'm going to go ahead and grab some calls to see what's going on this evening. Hello, caller,
Hey,
on the air.
what's up, Corey?
Hey, how's it going?
Can you hold on a second? I need to put the TV back on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you there?
All right, how you doing, man?
Good, yourself?
Hey, I'm liking the show tonight, man. You had a lot of good stuff to say, dude. It's really hit me at home,
All right.
You need to cut that fucking hair off.
Hey, buddy, if that's what you're preoccupied with, thanks for watching the show. If you want to sit for an hour and look at my fur, not a problem. Let me go ahead and grab the call. Hello, caller, on the air.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Corey, this is Jimmy Gardner here.
Hey, Jimmy. Hey, man, I want to thank you for everything you've been doing. And I mentioned before, too, you had that letter to the editor published not that long ago in the Statesman.
I did, thank you.
And then you had the opportunity to get the bribe thing going on recently. So give a little bit of insight, man. What's going on?
Well, first of all, Corey, let me thank you for, vouching for my integrity.
No question about
on the
it,
airways. They messed with the wrong guy on this one. The thing's really blown up in their faces. This might be what puts us over the top on this thing. And so everything happens for a reason. I think that was the reason.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to take this opportunity to get all your viewers to check out AustinTollParty.com.
Right.
If they have not already.
Sure.
On step 2 there, they can download their own petition.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's got to be registered Austin voters, Pflugerville, Round Rock. That doesn't count. If you can vote in the city elections here, since it is a recall petition, take that opportunity. And also, the big Campo meeting, which we are calling the Valentine's Day Massacre, or the Central Texas Toll Road Plan, is going to be Monday night. That's going to be at 6 p.m. at the LBJ Auditorium on the UT campus.
Mm-hmm.
That's 25th and Red River there. Bring your petitions down there. Don't feel bad about bringing a petition. It's got 5 signatures on it because this thing's going to be tight.
Right.
Notaries will be there.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a show of force. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to defeat this thing.
I definitely plan on being there. I mean, barring like some crazy circumstances, I'll be there probably a little shortly after 6, because I know it's supposed to go on from like 6 to 8 this upcoming Monday. And I would really encourage anybody, because I'm not driving a car currently, but still I feel like I have a dog in this race nonetheless. And I think anybody that lives in the city should be concerned about these infringements that are going on. So I really commend you, Jimmy, for everything you've been doing, man. It's like, I don't know that you necessarily wanted the spotlight. Matter of fact, I don't think that you do, but
I really don't, and it's really turned my life upside down this week.
Yeah,
and,
I happen to see,
I'm used to kicking it on back in my easy chair and watching ACAC and enjoying life.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Occasionally when I get up, out of my chair and go out and do something, sometimes, we make things happen, and you never know when that's going to happen. But I've learned quite a bit from this thing, mainly that when you get involved, good things happen. Absolutely. And also because we're going to win this thing.
I'm confident.
And the whole country is looking at us because this is going to be a model plan for the whole country.
Yep, sure.
And so, we got people all over the country taking a look at this thing, and, we want to do them proud. We want to show them how it's done in Texas.
Amen
and
to that.
We're taking this thing nationwide.
Right, I hear what you're saying. Well, I did have a chance to hear you on Jack Blood. I heard you on Alex's radio program, and I saw you on Alex's show. So, like I said, you've been getting probably a little more press than you anticipated off of this thing, a little more mileage than you might have thought. But, hey, again, like you said, first and foremost, they just picked the wrong person. I mean, I know they don't have any way of knowing, that this guy is just, past that kind of stuff. He's not going to take the bribes, don't even fool with him. But, it just happened that way. So let's use this energy and bend it for our good purposes.
And one more thing that I learned about this, Corey, is that when people find out that their lives are directly being affected, they are much more motivated to get off the couch.
That's very true. Very
so
true.
Let's think about that, because sometimes we get down in the dumps when, when we're fighting the New World Order and stuff. We get apathetic. Mm-hmm. We want to throw in the towel. Hey, we can't win this thing.
Right.
That's not true.
No, because think about it, why would a main aide of the mayor try to offer somebody a bribe if they didn't feel that there was something real here, or something that was really going to endanger them in their, little system that they have going on? So I think they definitely are. I mean, that's very strong evidence that they are fearful of what's going on, and they're aware that the potential is there to, get them on the outs. So again, thanks for everything that you've been doing, Jimmy. I appreciate that, and I look forward to seeing you in the near future.
Okay, take care, my friend.
Take care. We'll see you.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it was really, again, thanks for calling in, Jimmy. I really appreciate that. And anybody that didn't catch the beginning of the show and may have read the paper, that an individual that I've known for several years, and other Access hosts down here for that matter, know pretty well and can vouch for, the aide of the mayor tried to offer this guy a bribe in public, in a very public place. And, sometimes people just think everybody's for sale, and when they run up against somebody that's not for sale, that the situation changes. So that's what we're dealing with right now. And the toll party is a very good example of how, at a grassroots level, the toll party and all the efforts against the tolls and the toll roads, that's a very good example of how we can pool our energies and efforts. Whether you're whatever political affiliation or none of the above, these are issues that affect us all, and we can all merge our energies in a positive way. And I think this is a great example of that taking place here in Austin. Austin, to me, I'm so proud of Austin in so many respects for a lot of the efforts that have taken place to, again, merge on the issues and get past the party affiliations. I really feel like we can be a real shining example here in Austin with that. So again, much thanks, and I continue encouragement to you guys. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Hey, what's up, Corey?
Hey, how are you?
So what's the topic tonight?
Tinkering, relating to the whole, relating to the messing with the genome, and how there are pigs with human blood flowing through them.
Is this what you've been talking about?
Right, yeah.
Okay. You need to get a haircut, cock-loving.
Why is this such a preoccupation with people? Would it help you? I mean, what if I was a radio host and you never saw me? Would you listen in and wonder, wow, I wonder if that guy's got long hair or not? That's just pretty perplexing to me, but nonetheless. Okay, thanks for taking the time to view. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, am I on the air?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I think people are angry because they're enslaved. They've worked so many hours, and they're getting screwed, and they're just angry, and that's where a lot of people go. When they're angry, they go to a place like that. Talking about tinkering, I have to agree with you. So-called science has been tinkering with animals, and agriculture. They're tinkering with what we eat. Mm-hmm. Which is, you are what you eat, and we take it in and we break it down to its lowest common denominator, and then we reassemble it into more of ourselves.
True.
So if they're tinkering with our food, they're tinkering with us right there.
That's a good point.
And it's pretty scary. We just kind of need to leave well enough alone. Technology has really outrun our biological evolution. When you put it on a linear situation, how long have people been around? And let's say it's a line 3 feet long. Mm-hmm. How long have we been into agriculture and growing things and cooking food?
Right.
Which changes its nature.
Sure.
Only maybe 2 or 3 inches, out of 3 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like technology. We talk about how great it is, but in relation to like circadian rhythms, we think electricity is so great. It provides us with light. It provides non-nocturnal animals the ability to stay awake after dark. Biology says, when it gets dark, we go to sleep. And when it gets light, we wake up. And that's why all the sickness, the illness among all these people who work, the late shifts at night.
That's a very good point.
So generally, we're talking about how great technology is, and that's going to take us to new heights. And I think it's the antithesis to spirituality and the heights that could be gotten there.
Very, very good points. I do thank you for your comments. Anything else you care to add?
No, I believe that. Well, I just wondered, have you, I've been watching you for a while, and I think it's kind of interesting. You seem to be on a quest, and you're very open, and you obviously read a lot, and you take a lot in, and I've kind of been on the same quest for a long, long time myself. And then I started reading some Krishnamurti, some Jiddu Krishnamurti,
yes,
and then later some UG Krishnamurti, and now it's kind of like I'm back to the beginning again.
Well,
I just don't know about enlightenment. My own quest for enlightenment always brings me right back, to myself again.
Sure, absolutely. I would agree with you wholeheartedly. Krishnamurti taught a path of no paths, and essentially is saying what you're saying, that it all comes back to you ultimately. Yes,
yeah. That's UG Krishnamurti definitely says that there is no path to enlightenment, and it's like he became disillusioned. They were both, raised by people of the Theosophical Society
right, yes.
in England, and of course Jiddu was several years older. He passed on in the 80s, and UG is still alive and spends his summers in Switzerland. But he kind of used to be a follower to begin with of Jiddu, and after a period of time, he became disillusioned with him and called him a phony. And,
his own brother, huh?
No, they're not brothers. They're not related at all.
Oh, really?
No relation whatsoever.
Oh, okay.
But,
well, that's my misconception then. Thank you for clearing that up for me. I
yeah.
thought all this time that they were two brothers.
Yeah, no, they were not. They're of no relation.
Oh, okay.
And but anyway, every time Jiddu came to Switzerland, Sanden or wherever to speak, he was always there, and they were in many conversations over the years, and finally, just one day, it hit him. He just, one of those epiphanies, one of those days when you just seem to see through everything. He saw through Jiddu Krishnamurti, and that led me to read more biographical stuff. I was reading his philosophy and his perspective, but it led me to read more biographical stuff about Jiddu Krishnamurti, which his personal life was not like one that you would expect of an enlightened being. There were problems, and there were troubles, and there were business troubles, and it was constant turmoil. And so I have to look, I have to say the proof's in the pudding. I have to look at the guy's life. Is he suffering? If he seems to be suffering, then what's he missing? Because this can't be all attributed to just circumstance. It has to do something with his own decisions about his own life. And so I think that UG Krishnamurti saw through it sort of the same way. And now UG is in his 80s and floating around, and kind of like Gandhi, basically owns nothing, and he sees the illusion of the whole idea of possession, that's totally of the mind, just as any relationship, we say, my wife, my son, that's all an illusion. There's no physiological, no physical relationship. It's all in the mind.
True.
And he saw through that, and poof, he just changed, and now he just seems to float around the world and enjoy his life. But I think that this whole
I have to let you go. Thank you
me.
for your call. I'm really running out of time fast here, but thank you so much for those comments. I gleaned some information myself, which is great. I like to learn on this show as much as I can. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to view. We are having the Metaphysical this upcoming 16th of February, Opal Divine's upstairs, 8 p.m. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to view. We'll remind folks to check out Therefore I Am every Tuesday, 10 p.m., Channel 16. We are here every Thursday, Channel 11, 8 to 9 p.m. Any emails that I may have received, please bear with me. I'll try to get back to you guys as soon as I'm able to. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to view. I want to thank my producer, Chris, for commanding the helm of the Starship Esoterica. Thanks, Austin. Have a nice evening. Take care.